In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. Through him all things were made. Without him nothing was made that has been made. In him was life, and that life was the light of men. The light shines in the darkness, but the darkness has not understood it. There came a man who was sent from God. His name was John. He came as a witness to testify concerning that light, so that through him all might believe. He himself was not the light. He came only as a witness to the light. The true light that gives light to every person was coming into the world. He was in the world, and though the world was made through him, the world did not recognize him. He came to that which was his own, but his own did not receive him. Yet to all who received him, to those who believed in his name, he gave the right to become children of God, children born not of natural descent, nor of human decision, or a husband's will, but born of God. The Word became flesh and dwelt among us. We have seen his glory, the glory of the one and only, who came from the Father, full of grace and truth.
Hello and welcome to Skipton Baptist Church Online. It's getting darker and darker out there, isn't it, as we progress towards midwinter's shortest day. And in this time of increased hours of darkness, light becomes ever more important, doesn't it? Obviously for lighting our homes, our streets, and definitely our car headlights. But over these last days and weeks, there's been a steady stream of festive lights appearing all over the place in homes and shops and towns. In fact, over the years, maybe you've noticed an increase in the number and complexity and splendour and variation of different house lights, not being limited just to a tree, a Christmas tree, but to roofs, to gardens, to walls and hedges. And even big towns and cities are having big lights switched on as part of their Christmas build-up. Light this time of year is so relevant in so many ways to so many people. Light is a key theme at Christmas. We've heard from John chapter 1 how light has come into the world and it shines in the darkness, and that light is Jesus, who later in his teachings calls himself the light of the world, and indeed that his followers are to be the same. So when planning this message for this Carol Service Sunday at SBC, there were so many different aspects to talk about regarding light and lights. But it was just the other week when, during a sharing service, one of our church family, Hannah Green, recounted her recent experience of the Northern Lights. I'm sure many of us have had a similar one of this time of over the past number of months, of seeing those exquisite heavenly sights for ourselves. And what Hannah shared really prompted me to think about God's light to us at Christmas. So let's have a listen to Hannah's story.
I've always wanted to see the Northern Lights, but I never really thought I ever would. But recently there's been some sightings in our area, so I had a little bit of hope maybe one day I would. And then one night last October, a friend from work posted a photo of them on the work WhatsApp group, and I was determined to see them. I was so excited. I put on my boots and my coat and went outside looking at the sky, but all I could see was darkness. So I thought, well, she lives in Addingham, I'll walk towards Addingham. So I set off walking, looking, but still all I could see was darkness. So I went back home, into the lounge where my family were watching television, and I said, "Who fancies a drive to Addingham?" But that wasn't met with much enthusiasm. So I thought, maybe I'll try a higher place. So I came up here into our loft where we've got Velux windows front and back. And I looked out both ways, just squinting into the darkness, trying to see if I could make anything out, praying that I would catch a glimpse of them. But still nothing. So I texted my friend, where do I need to look? What do I need to do? And then she replied with the information that I needed. It's clearer through your camera lens. So I looked through my phone and I could see them. And it was beautiful. So I then called my family up, and once they'd seen it for themselves, they were excited as I was. And we started texting everyone we know, because that's what you do when you have good news. Later on, just before I went to bed, I had another look, and they were much stronger than earlier, and the whole cycle of calling family, texting friends, exchanging photos began again. But before I called my family upstairs, as I was standing with my head out of the window, I heard some people out walking their dogs, passing the time of night with each other. And I realised that they didn't know what was just above their heads. No one had revealed to them the secret. Look through your phone. And I wanted to shout down, look up, look through your phone, it's beautiful. But I've got neighbours with young children, so I didn't shout because it was bedtime. But here comes the challenge. I believe that God has revealed himself to me, and I genuinely believe that knowing Jesus makes a difference to my life every single day. So maybe I need to be more passionate about sharing that good news as well.
The Northern Lights, the Aurora Borealis. I don't know about you, but that's really intrigued me over many years, and I thought I would only ever see them if I went to the kind of northern parts of Norway or whatever. And so it was amazing to be able to see those for ourselves. I'm a bit of an astro geek, and so when I heard that there were experts that were telling us that there was a likelihood of extra powerful northern light activity, it was because the sun is at its peak of an 11-year cycle, which means it's throwing out more stuff towards everywhere, and it's hitting the earth, and it's causing these charged particles which create the aurora to be more intense than normal. And so we're seeing the lights further south than normally we would. These experts were predicting and expecting to see these lights because of what they were observing. And it reminds me of the prophets and those who were looking for the light of the world, looking and expecting for the king to come. In Isaiah chapter 9, verses 1 and 2, it talks about a light that would be seen in the most unlikely of places. It says, "Nevertheless, there will be no more gloom for those who are in distress." In the past, God humbled the land of Zebulun and the land of Naphtali, but in the future he'll honor Galilee of the nations by the way of the sea, beyond the Jordan. The people walking in darkness have seen a great light. Those living in the land of deep darkness, a light has dawned. The land of Zebulun and Naphtali in the area of Galilee, this is where the light shines from. This is where the light will be dawned. And these areas are in the north. So who Isaiah is talking about is a northern light, the northern light. And it reminds me as well of the rest of the Christmas story, where the wise men or the magi, the astronomers, the Patrick Moore or Brian Cox, whoever your generational pick is, they're astronomers of the day. They were Persian scientists studying the stars, noticing an anomaly and referring to scriptures, indicating that there was a birth of someone special. A light was predicted, is predicted. And there were those who were looking, waiting, expecting, knowing that they needed and desperately wanted that light, that it was coming, and that they were looking and waiting for it. And when it came, word spread. And it was similar in our situation with the Northern Lights, wasn't it? Do you remember those nights where you were sitting at home completely unaware of what was going on outside, watching TV, reading, maybe having your tea, and then you maybe just thought you'd check your social media feed. Normally there's nothing much interesting, but this time Skipton Community Notice Board was filled with pages of photographs of these amazing light displays above our little town. And so plates of food were left half-eaten, programs were paused, bookmarks were inserted, conversations interrupted, even children were woken up to come and see this wonder, and they dash out into the cold and look up and not sure what they're seeing, not sure what they're looking for. Is that a northern light, that faint glow, or is it just the town's lights reflecting off something else? Is it the sunset maybe? In fact, what am I looking for anyhow? So many were looking and just vaguely seeing something, not sure what it is. Was it the northern lights or not? And it's not helped by obstructions and distractions. Messages were being sent. It's not as clear in the town centre. Go further afield than inner cities. The glow from street lights reducing the ability to see, or even more frustrating, the bane of any stargazer, cloud, getting in the way from potentially experiencing those northern lights. And when we're looking for God's light, for an experience of God, we can easily be distracted by lesser, more showy lights which distract us and our attention, taking our attention from God, and other things get in the way, the obstructions like clouds which get in the way of seeing and knowing God. And we need to get away from the distractions and clear away the obstructions to get a better view. So you need to be away from these distractions, and for the northern lights we need to be somewhere dark, because sometimes it's only in the dark when you are aware of the light. Often dark is portrayed as the opposite of light. It's a typical trope in stories and movies and books, but in reality, dark is not the opposite and equal of light. Dark is the absence of light. And this is an important distinction to make, because whilst you may be in a very dark place, the appearance of light transforms the situation and the context. I think of a dungeon that we went to when I was on a school trip to Carrickfergus Castle, not just outside Belfast. And they took us around. I was about 7 years old. Our class were taken around the castle, and then we're taken into the dungeons. And the guide closed the door, and then I said, I'm going to give you an experience of what the prisoners would have felt like. And he switched the lights off, and it was so dark. It was like every part of our eyes were kind of screaming out for any photon of light, trying to resolve anything, but it was just completely dark. And it actually was really quite scary. I was scared, and I was realizing others around us were scared too. And so my 7-year-old hero brain kicked in, and I had my secret weapon. And so I pressed the top right button of my Casio digital watch, which made this tiny, tiny light come on. And we're talking really tiny. But even with this tiny, tiny light on the side of my watch appearing, it still caused it to no longer be dark. Obviously, it didn't illuminate the whole chamber with a mass of 7-year-olds cowering away from the dazzling rays. It was still pretty dark throughout the cavern. But wherever that little light went, there was no dark, because light had come. Light had come, and darkness was dispelled. And where there is light, darkness finds it difficult to exist. And Jesus brings light to our darkness, exposing the things that need showing up, guiding us, directing us, bringing light and hope into our situation. We're so aware, aren't we, that our worlds, both personal and national and beyond, can sometimes seem so very dark. Feelings of despair and dread and depression, worry and fear, threat of the unknown, feeling stuck in a situation. And Jesus can bring his light into the darkest of places. Dark is the unknown, the uncertain, the hidden, the lostness, the fear, even, dare we say, evil. And even in the darkest night, the dimmest flicker is enough to bring a sense of hope and guidance and direction. And that was the experience of the people of Israel for centuries. Because of their disobedience to God, they'd been in exile, they'd returned to their homeland, but they'd had a succession of overlords, the Greeks, then the Romans, and they were oppressed. Now, this time of Jesus, The Romans were in charge, and they felt very run down. They were in a dark, dark place, and they hoped for a bright, dazzling light to appear, and instead it was a spark, a light that glowed and glowed, a baby-sized light which would spread to the entirety of the empire and throughout the world, the light of the world. I loved Hannah's story because, like many of us, we thought when we looked for those northern lights, we could only see that vague reddish, greenish, pinkish hue in the sky and wondered, was that it? Maybe there was a sense of jealousy of the uploaded photos of others who seemed to be experiencing something much better than we were. And then maybe you and I, and certainly Hannah, heard the news, heard the words, look at that faint glow through your phone, as Hannah said in her story. And suddenly the lights became real, much clearer, defined, dancing, greens melding into pinks with reds, incrementally changing before our very eyes. And then they could even become even more clear with a few adjustments to our camera phones and taking a photo which required us to be so still. And sometimes is that not a word to us that our stillness is when we can actually experience and see God at his fullness. For sciencey reasons, the phone apparently gathers more light than our eyes can in dark conditions. We could only really see these northern lights through the lens of our phones. And my friends, it really brought home to me that we can sometimes sense the hue, the feeling, the possibility of God, a perception of there must be something more to life than this. We perceive it with our own naked spiritual eye, but in order to really see and experience God fully, to see his reality, his beauty, his majesty, his love, we were given a lens through which to look. A baby that became a man who lived a life and showed us what God is really like, ultimately leading to a cross, his death, and his resurrection to new life, a life that is promised to you and promised to me, where God is light and life and love. That is the truth. If you want to see the northern lights, you need to look through a lens. If you want to know God more clearly, you need to look through Jesus. That lens is Jesus, and only through Jesus can we really see God, his character, his love, his justice, his wisdom, his mercy, his joy, his compassion, and his peace, his light. We're unable to take in the fullness of God, so God showed who he was in his Son Jesus, the original and the best northern light, bringing light into our darkness and a clear vision and experience of God for each and every one of us, which is available. Light for our darkness, whatever is causing it. I know there was so much frustration when seeing pictures from other people that we couldn't see of the northern lights anything more than a smudge. What info have they got? What do they know that we don't? And then someone told Hannah, someone told me, someone told you perhaps how to see those lights. We had to be told. I love the story at this time of year where we think about the shepherds. Yes, I love the whole angel chorus thing, the visiting the baby Jesus, giving him a lamb, all that stuff. But it's the next bit I really love, the bit where they go off. It says, when they'd seen him, they spread the word concerning him of what had been told about this child. They went off and told everyone what they had seen, because it was worth telling. That's what Hannah said in her story, wasn't it? That if we've got good news, it's what you do with it. You tell others. I love that story because once Hannah had seen the northern lights through the lens which she'd been told to see them, being bowled over by their beauty, she said she went off, she wanted to tell her family and she wanted to tell people outside. And it was with that sense of wonder and excitement she wanted to tell about that experience to others. And when Hannah told that story, it was that challenge that we can be so excited about telling other people about the northern lights, but how excited are we about telling others how to see God through Jesus, the one who created the wonders of the northern lights and many other wonders in the universe, who wants to know you and wants to know me through Jesus. And some people, I'm sure, maybe have experienced the same as what I did. I excitedly went and told my kids who were at home and tucked up in bed or watching TV. And when I told them, come and see it, and couldn't be bothered to move. Or perhaps maybe they weren't that interested, and so they didn't go and look. But the next day, I remember talking with my daughter, and she saw the pictures that people were putting online, and she was disappointed that she'd missed out, and she was determined not to miss out next time. Perhaps you know that there are other people around you that seem to have an experience that you would love, but you're scared you might miss out. Don't miss out. Make sure you don't miss out. The next day, my daughter came out with me in the night. We could see it again, and she was bowled over by it and so glad she took the opportunity. Don't miss out on what Jesus has on offer. Showing people what the Northern Lights looked like on the phone revealed their reality. Telling them didn't rouse them, but seeing the pictures did. It's why we need to share Jesus, our experience of seeing God through him, with others so they might see him clearly too. Talking about it might not be enough. People want to know it's real, to see what difference it makes and the enthusiasm in our lives. You know, so many people around our country and around our world will at some point be heading to some sort of Christmas or church event, carol service, nativity plays, Christmas Eve Mass, Christmas morning services, whatever. For many, it'll be one of the few times maybe they come to church. Perhaps that is even you watching this as well. It's the only contact you're having with the truth of Jesus and the Christian faith. Once in a while, you may come and sense a glimpse of the something more, vaguely spiritual even. Maybe you might even think about God every now and again, a vague, unknowable sense of something more, and you just don't know what it is. And perhaps you notice that there are those around who seem to have a clearer picture of who this God is, of what's really going on, who speak and act like they have a better, more real, and dare I say, personal experience and understanding of that vague glow and sense of what might be God. If you're in any way thinking like that, try looking through the lens of Jesus, and you'll see what we're all going on about. Get a gospel, have a look at the story in Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John. Watch a Lumo video online. Download the Chosen app and see a presentation of what Jesus was like around them. Ask one of your friends who seems to know how to see this real light for themselves. The beauty, the glory, the wonder and splendor of the love of God, seen only through Jesus, the real light of the world, which outshines, outdazzles, and outlasts any other light, even the northern ones.